All right, let's dive into one of nature's most amazing transformations. We're talking about how bees take simple flower nectar and turn it into the thick golden honey that we all know and love. It's an incredible story of chemistry, engineering, and just unbelievable teamwork. So, have you ever really stopped to think about it? You see a bee buzzing around a flower, and then you see a jar of honey on a shelf. What in the world happens in between? How do they pull off this little bit of natural magic? Well, we're going to break it down step by step. So, where does it all begin? Well, it all starts with one very special bee, the forager. Her job is the absolute first, most critical step in this whole honey-making operation. And listen, this isn't a job for rookies. The task of flying out and collecting all that nectar, that's reserved for the hive's seasoned veterans, forager bees who are at least 21 days old. These are the experienced pros who know exactly where to find the best flowers. Now, as that forager sips nectar from a flower, she doesn't swallow it into her regular stomach. No, instead, she stores it in this incredible internal pouch called the honey stomach, or the crop. You can basically think of it as a built-in, dedicated backpack just for carrying nectar. And this is where nature just gets so incredibly clever. The bee basically has two stomachs. One is for its own food, for energy. But the other, that separate honey stomach, that's where the magic of making honey actually kicks off. The whole chemical transformation starts the second that nectar goes into this special pouch. Okay, so with her precious cargo safe and sound, the forager bee flies all the way back to the hive. And this is where things get really interesting. The hive basically turns into this bustling, living chemistry lab. So, the real secret ingredient here? It's all about enzymes. See, the bee adds these special proteins from its own glands right into the nectar it's carrying. These enzymes are what kickstart a massive chemical reaction, and it's all happening right inside her honey stomach as she flies. So here's what's actually going on. Nectar is mostly sucrose. That's the same kind of complex sugar you'd have in your sugar bowl at home. But an enzyme called invertase immediately gets to work, and it breaks that sucrose down into two much simpler sugars, glucose and fructose. This change is absolutely key to what makes honey, well, honey. And it makes it much easier for the bees and us to digest. Back at the hive, the forager doesn't just, dump the nectar somewhere. Instead, she passes her whole load to a house bee, who might then pass it to another bee, and so on. And get this, with every single transfer from one bee's mouth to the next, more and more of those crucial enzymes get added in, which continues the chemical breakdown. It's a real team effort. Okay, so chemically, the mix is looking great. But they have a new problem. It's way, way too watery. Fresh nectar can be like 80% water, and that would spoil in no time. So now the bees have to tackle their next big engineering problem. They've got to dry it out. And their goal is incredibly specific. They have to get that water content down from that 80% all the way down to below 18%. That super low moisture level is exactly what makes honey last forever. And to pull this off, they use two absolutely brilliant techniques. First, you got hundreds of bees working together, fanning their wings at the same time to create this constant warm breeze that just flows through the whole hive. It's like a giant, perfectly coordinated ventilation system. While that's happening, other bees will take a little drop of nectar and pass it back and forth on their tongues, exposing it to that warm, moving air to help the water evaporate even faster. It's just an incredible display of teamwork. So once the honey finally reaches that perfect, thick consistency with less than 18% water, it is ready for the final step in the process, getting it ready for long-term storage. And just like that, the transformation is complete. The nectar is now officially ripe honey. Through all that chemistry and teamwork, the bees have created a perfect, stable food source. So the ripe honey gets placed into one of those amazing hexagonal honeycomb cells. And to keep it absolutely perfect, a worker bee creates fresh beeswax and carefully builds a cap over the cell. This creates a perfect airtight seal that protects the honey from any moisture or anything else that could spoil it. And speaking of perfection, check this out for cleanliness and precision. Bees are so careful, so meticulous, that they will never ever place their legs inside a cell that already has nectar or honey in it. They are instinctively creating a pristine food source, and they do everything they can to keep it that way. So after all that foraging, all that chemistry, and all that incredible cooperative engineering,
what do we actually have? We've got nature's perfect pantry. The final product is just an amazing substance. It's packed with simple sugars, it's super low in water, it's incredibly high in energy, and it's naturally resistant to spoiling. This is the colony's entire food supply, designed from the ground up to keep them alive through the cold winter months when there aren't any flowers.
So I want to leave you with one last thought, and it's a pretty powerful one. A single honeybee in her entire lifetime produces only about 1/12 of a teaspoon of honey. That's it, just a tiny little drop. So the next time you hold a jar of honey, just remember that what you're really holding is the collective life's work of thousands upon thousands of bees. It's just a powerful reminder of what can be accomplished when we all work together.